forward has to be fully funded. If my party, the Republican Party, controls Congress, we cannot let this budget go forward with funding those items. Because I think we've heard a mandate from my district at least that this is clearly, right now, this is something that they don't like. If we don't vote for it, that budget doesn't pass. If that budget doesn't pass, that health care bill cannot be enacted. That's my answer to you.
Number two, what's your next?
You had 5 things?
4 or 5.
4 or 5?
I don't want to just send you back. I don't want to just send you back there to get reelected like everybody else.
I understand.
I don't want to know what you plan to
did that answer your question though about the defunding?
Yeah.
So and I wanted to say one more thing. So what that does is it sets up a contest of wills between the president and the Congress. And the president is going to have to veto the bill and we're not going to fund these items. We'll send them up without funding them. So he's either going to have to veto it or he's going to have to sign it. If he vetoes it, then it's on him because he's the one who's insisting on all these different items that he wants funded. If he signs it, then it eliminates it right there. So I think that's the first thing that has to happen. Second thing is to secure our border. And to secure our border, I think I talked about a little bit already, 6,000 troops to be sent to the border immediately. Not 1,200, 6,000 troops.
Armed.
With the rules of engagement and being able to defend themselves. The third thing is, besides that issue about securing the border, the third thing would have to be stop the spending. Anything that has not been spent with the stimulus, I think we should stop spending, period. I think we're hemorrhaging right now because we're spending too much. We're going from, this stimulus bill really is a public sector stimulus. It's not a private sector stimulus. And it is only going to benefit those who are actually receiving money from the government in the first place. That's a huge problem. So those are the top 3 agenda items for me. Secure the border, stop this health care bill, and stop spending this money. And then I would add on to it, change the House rules. You cannot do this earmarking process like we've seen before. So that's 4. And I'm sure as we go along, I'll have the 5th one that'll jog my memory. Yes, sir.
For the border security issue, how are you going to vet the sheriffs to make sure that when they get federal funding, they're actually using the money correctly, making sure that they're not lining their own pockets?
Well, I think we have a process in place already to make sure that they're not corrupt. I don't know that, I mean, unless I see some specific proof, I can't really address it. I don't know that, we have the Department of Justice is supposed to make sure that people aren't breaking the law, whatever level of government is at. I think the biggest problem is at least in my county right now, we have a sheriff's department that has said they're not going to enforce Senate Bill 1070. Now we have what apparently is we have a federal government that isn't going to enforce federal law either, which is why we had Senate Bill 1070 in the first place. Other questions?
Getting back to the border issue, where do you see a fence in all of this?
I think we made about a word of it, we made a commitment, I guess, as a country that we were going to fully fund a AA or AAA.
That was the enabling legislation,
Right.
which has never been funded. That's a good,
Right.
that's a good illustration of the
Right.
health care bill.
Right. Well, they can do it to our fence, like we can certainly do it to their health care bill. You have to complete it. I mean, we made the legislation. You need to fully fund the fence and get it built. But the thing is if one of the ranchers that came down from after the Prince murder, he went up to the Capitol, and I saw him, and he talked about if you had a prison and you built a wall around that prison that was 20 feet high, and you had a double or triple layered, how long would it be if you didn't have anybody on that wall? How long would it be before they all got out? And that's kind of the same problem that we have. Even if you build a 700-foot wall, if you don't have people patrolling that wall actively, you're not going to be able to protect that perimeter. And you have to do it not only with manpower, but you also have to have electronic surveillance and all the rest.
Sure.
You have to do
a whole team of effort.
Yeah, you have to have a multi-layered form of defense. I mean, that's what any military would tell you. You have to do that if you're going to stop someone from going where they're not supposed to go. You'd have to do that. And there's 700 miles of it. And you have to fully fund it. You have to fully fund having the Border Patrol on there. And people say, well, it's going to be very expensive. Well, it's very expensive at this state. Not too long ago, you shut down the Bisbee maternity ward because they weren't able to deal with the influx of people that were coming in there because of illegal immigration. They're talking about doing that in Sierra Vista as well. Eventually, that's going to mean that Tucson is the place you go. Well, that's not the way, that's causing harm to my community. And if I'm going to represent that community, I don't want to vote for legislation if it's not going to actually secure the border. And you're not going to secure the border with one simple thing. There's no one simple fix. And you'll hear a lot of candidates say, well, all we have to do is this, and all we have to do is that. You have to do all of it.
The simple thing is to keep the emphasis on securing the border, rather than some broad-based nonsense overhaul of some ridiculous system. First, you have to stop the bleeding.
I think if you just enforced the laws that are on the books now, I think we would have a lot less problems.
Indeed.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get the comment from many people that the fence that was built is not effective, that it was not a very good design? We spent an awful lot of money on it already.
We went down there, there was you had the big block party here in Sierra Vista. We were part of that, our campaign was, but we also sent people down to the border to help out with border cleanup. And we have great pictures that came from the fence that's down there now. And there's actual handholds that are welded onto the fence, one for adults, one for children, to get over. And the Border Patrol comes by every week, takes them off, and then someone welds them back on, the next day.
But the fence over by Yuma is more effective than
It is, but it's 11 miles. It's not, that's all it is. And there are some other issues. There's some terrain issues that you could run into and some other things you have to deal with as well. And that all has to be worked out, but it doesn't look like they're even addressing partially any of that problem. That doesn't seem to be a priority. They have trillions of dollars to spend on everything except for our security. Yes?
Yes, hi, Jonathan. Getting back to the issue of earmarks, I was concerned about the email that came around from your campaign regarding Jesse Kelly and what he is doing there. I have no basis to doubt the veracity of what you said, and there's probably some background to it, which I don't know. However, the thing that really concerns me is the tone of that. And what I'm doing is, when I'm looking beyond beyond the primary to the campaign. If Jesse Kelly wins the campaign, how are you going to turn that negativity around into positive support for him? Because the thing we cannot have, must not have, is what happened in 2006, when the people chose Randy Graff. But the people who he defeated swallowed among themselves, Phoenix swallowed among themselves, and Gifford slipped it. We must not have that again. So,
So I'll address that. First of all, it's campaigns, you're going to have disagreements about a lot of different issues that happen. We basically have been silent on the other campaigns for weeks since we got into this race, and we've taken the high road. He sent out a particularly nasty email a few days before that.
I'm not on his email list,
so he sent that out. We responded by saying, look, if you're going to be poking at someone else and what their record is, you should also look at your own record as well. And we have not sent anything out other than a response to anything that he sent out in the first place. But we can't just not respond. We have to have at least a response. And we felt it was hypocritical, the things that he was saying in his emails. And it's difficult when you're running against people who don't have a record at all. And they can make any charges that they want, but all they have is their own experience. And we're looking at his experience, and basically it was his job is to work for a company and go out and seek earmarks and stimulus dollars to fund his company. And that's fine, but at the same time, he's saying he opposes the stimulus and earmarks. And I felt that was kind of a hypocritical stance to be taking. But by the same token, I don't want to get involved in Jesse Kelly's campaign. We've been focusing almost 99% on Gabrielle Giffords. And here's the thing I will tell you. Whoever wins this primary, we will support. And we said that. Yes, sir.
John, getting back to the spending situation, we all know that, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's somewhere around 80 or 90% of the expenditures, federal expenditures are for, what do you call it, mandated things. Which of those, how would